excited to go to the Taboo Night Club here in downtown Cedar Rapids. That night, you will hear and see, there was a 90s theme party. The music was great, it was loud, the club was packed, everyone was having a great time. You will see the club was covered by a set of video surveillance cameras that show in very high quality what was going on there during the early morning hours of April 10th of 2022. The videos show the defendant, Dimione Walker, in the club, dancing, having fun, interacting with people, hugging friends. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the video will show that in the far back corner, Michael Valentine and his friend, Morris Williams, enter the club. We will see Valentine enters with Morris, smiling, making the rounds, high-fiving his friends, shaking hands, talking with a young lady, the type of thing that a 25-year-old guy does when he hits the club in the early morning hours. We will see on the video that approximately 2 minutes later, after Mr. Valentine enters the club, the defendant, Dimione Walker, spots Michael Valentine inside the club. We will see on that video, the defendant stops and stares at Michael Valentine. Then, as we continue to watch the video, and there will be 2 separate videos from 2 separate angles we anticipate, you will see that the defendant walks by an exit door, hugs a couple of people, stands next to the exit door for quite some time after noticing Michael Valentine here in the club. The video will show that the defendant does not flee or exit the door, but instead walks back into the crowd towards the bar, where Michael Valentine is there talking to friends. The video will show, and we will see, that the defendant is eyeballing Michael Valentine, and that Michael continues to socialize. He's smiling, saying hello to friends, talking to people. Next, the video will show, and this is at approximately 1:33 a.m. in 46 seconds, and there will be timestamps on the video. The defendant turns his back on Michael Valentine. Michael Valentine, you will see, then reaches his hand to shake hands or hug an acquaintance of his. At this point, as Michael Valentine is standing, reaching for his acquaintance, you will see that at approximately 1:33 and 49 seconds, the defendant spins around on Michael Valentine and immediately begins shooting a firearm at him, right next to him. The video will show that Michael Valentine's hands come up. You can see his hands come up as he tries to block his face from the round that enters into his cheek. You will see both of his hands, and you will see that they are empty. The video will show that the defendant unloads 8 rounds immediately with a 9mm gun. 7 of those rounds strike our victim. Then, as the defendant is still shooting Michael Valentine, who is at this point on the floor, dying, the defendant, still shooting, exits through that same door that he could have exited through the entire time Michael Valentine was in the club. We will see on the video that Michael Valentine immediately hits the ground and dies. Next, we'll hear about the police investigation. We'll hear testimony from Sergeant Matthew Gorman that he arrived shortly after the shooting and found Michael Valentine was clearly already deceased. We'll hear testimony from crime scene and ballistics experts to show that all of the deadly rounds that killed Michael Valentine came from this main gun, according to their experience and expertise in their investigation. We will hear from investigators who interviewed the defendant. They will tell us that the defendant denied even knowing who Michael Valentine was. They will tell us that he denied that he was even there in the club, even though he's on the video. We'll also hear that the defendant had no business even carrying a firearm, because he was a convicted felon. And then finally, we'll hear testimony from Dr. Dennis Klein, the chief medical examiner for the state of Iowa. He will testify that he performed an autopsy on Michael Valentine. And he will explain to us how Michael Valentine dies and why, as a result of all of those gunshots from the defendant's gun. This is a brief outline of what I believe the facts in this case will show. At the end of this case, I will have a chance to talk to you again, and at that time I will ask that you deliberate and return a verdict based upon the evidence presented. I will ask that you find the defendant guilty of the crimes that are supported by the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, murder in the first degree for killing Michael Valentine without any justification, going armed with intent for his act of spotting Michael Valentine, approaching him with a loaded firearm with the intent to use it on him, and for being a felon in the possession of a firearm. And thank you very much for your kind attention and your time during this trial. Thank you.